Once upon a time, there was a town called Hamelin. Hamelin was nice. Everyone was friends, everyone worked together. It was a happy town, and the people loved living there. But one terrible year, Hamelin found it had a big problem. The whole town had become overrun by rats. Hundreds and thousands of them. They were everywhere, and you can't imagine the trouble they caused. They chewed through the wood in people's houses, the paper in the post boxes in schoolrooms, and even the metal pipes that carried the clean water for the town. They gobbled up the food in people's larders, the vegetables growing in their gardens, and the animal feed in the barns. They spread germs and diseases, making the people of Hamelin sick. They chewed and squeaked and scratched and rustled and scurried through the walls of the houses day and night so no one could sleep a wink. The hungry, tired and despairing townspeople gathered in the town hall to speak to the mayor. "Help us, Mayor," they all said. "Please do something." "We could trap them," the kindly mayor said. "They have become too clever," the townspeople said. "Then we shall get cats to rid us of them," the mayor said. "We already have," the townspeople said. "The rats are multiplying faster than the cats can catch them. And some of the rats are so big, the cats just turn and run the other way." The mayor looked from person to person, with panic all over his face. He had completely run out of ideas. Just then, the heavy doors of the town hall were thrown open with an almighty crash, and there, standing in the doorway, was a mysterious-looking man. He was tall and thin and wore colourful striped clothing, a brightly patterned cloak, and a feathered hat. In his hand, he carried a small silver flute. As one, the townspeople turned and looked at him in anticipation. "Who are you?" asked the mayor, eyeing him suspiciously. "I am the Pied Piper," the man said grandly, as if everyone should have heard of him already. "I have come to rid you of your rat problem." Everyone started murmuring excitedly. "And how do you intend to do that?" asked the mayor, careful not to allow himself to start feeling hopeful just yet. "My methods are a secret," the Pied Piper responded with a shining smile. "But I guarantee 100% success, or your money back." "Money?" the mayor said. "How much money?" The town had spent nearly all of their money on trying to solve the rat problem. "Don't worry about that now," the Pied Piper said casually. "Let's get your town back." The mayor was a little wary, but the townspeople looked so hopeful and so desperate that he said, "Deal." The Pied Piper grinned and bowed deeply to the mayor. Without another word, he sauntered from the town hall into the town square. The curious townsfolk followed him and watched as he raised his silver flute to his lips. The sound was as clear and sweet as fresh water in a mountainside brook. The tune tripped and danced like autumn leaves in a warm, gentle breeze, each note floating gracefully and enchanting everyone who heard it. The townsfolk felt the weight of their terrible rat troubles lift a little from their shoulders, just from the sheer joy of the music. As the piper continued, they felt lighter than air, and those who had become sickly and ill suddenly felt their afflictions melt away. The children who had been wriggling from boredom and grumbling with empty tummies were suddenly smiling, dancing and giggling. Friends put their arms around one another and swayed in time with the music. It seemed for that brief moment that all was well. As the piper continued his playing, there was a rumbling sound. The ground began to hum and vibrate, and into the square poured a tidal wave of rats from every direction. Through the windows of the houses, over the tops of the roofs, along all the lanes leading in every direction, more and more rats clamoured and climbed over each other to reach the Pied Piper and get closer to the sweet music. The piper kept playing, unfazed by the deluge of rodents, and started to walk. The wave of rats followed him closely, gripped by the mesmerising melody. The townspeople followed behind to see what would happen next. Through the town and across the fields they went, until they reached a great river that rushed and swirled before them. Continuing to play, The piper stepped aside, and the rats surged and rolled past him, flowing right into the raging river, finally carried away by the torrent. Only then did the piper stop playing. The people of the town crowded around him, lifting him to their shoulders and clapping him on the back. Everyone wanted to shake his hand, touch his cloak, thank him for what he had done for the town. The piper just smiled at the warmth and kindness of the people. He wasn't used to this, and it felt nice, even if it was just for a short time, until it was time for him to move on to the next town. The next day, the piper went to the town hall to ask for his payment, but the mayor, surprised by the amount, was unable to pay. The piper left the town hall disappointed. He didn't like to do this next part, but they had made a deal, and he would not allow them to break it. Inside, the mayor felt awful. He wished he could pay, but they had simply run out of money buying rat traps and cats. As he was about to go home, he heard a sound. A sweet tinkling tune that made all of his worry and strife just melt away into the air. He hummed along as he stepped out of the town hall into the glistening sunlight. It was a glorious day, and everything was going to be all right. The town square was filled with the other townsfolk who had come out of their houses at the sound of the music. They turned their faces towards the warmth of the sun, closing their eyes in utter bliss. As they stood enchanted by the music, they didn't realise that their children were following the Pied Piper, just as the rats did. It pained the piper to do this, but he was teaching Hamelin an important lesson about keeping its promises. But as he led the children out of the town, he had a sudden change of heart. He stopped walking, he stopped playing. The children and the townspeople shook the enchantment out of their heads and looked around in confusion. The piper turned to the assembled crowd, taking in the town and the people he had grown very fond of. "Perhaps," he said, "instead of my payment, I could just stay. I've never really had a home before." Everyone gathered around him, and with a grateful smile, the mayor said, "You do now." The Pied Piper smiled back, and the new deal was struck. And so, the people of Hamelin and the Pied Piper lived happily ever after. The end. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this magical story. If you want to come along on more of our adventures, make sure you subscribe to our channel. There's so much more to be discovered. You can start right now by clicking on our channel and picking your next favourite tale. There really is something for everyone, from daring heroes and mischievous creatures to magical lands and secret wonders. And remember, by subscribing, you'll be the first to know when a brand new story is ready to be enjoyed. Let's go.